Welcome to the First Step podcast, where we chat with remarkable people about their personal and business adventures. Our goal is to give you little jewels of knowledge that you can adapt into your life to form your own destiny. Some of our guests will be familiar, others not, but the common thread is they had a plan and took the first step to getting where they are today. Here's your host, Narissa Show.
Hello to my fabulous listeners. I had never heard of sweat equity until I saw our guest speak at an event recently. For those that only thought venture capitalists or a cash injection from an investor is the only way to grow your business, think again. This is the story of how Tamara Loehr helped take a business from under $500,000 turnover to over 10 million in 2 years, and the importance of sweat equity to help make it happen. Some of the recent awards she's won is Stevie American Business Awards, first place for Female Entrepreneur of the Year, Fast Growth. Smart Company 50 Award, third place. BRW Fast Starters Top 20 list. Lord Mayor Small Business Growth Award, first place. And Brisbane News Young Entrepreneur Hospitality and Tourism, first place. So Tamara started her marketing company about 19 years ago, specialising in national and international ASICs and established brands. So Tamara's agency also worked closely with medium-sized private companies to develop and implement high-growth marketing and sales strategies. The agency grew to be in the top 2% of agencies in Australia. During this time, Tamara enjoyed working closely with mergers and acquisitions to help increase the value of businesses for acquisition through improved brand equity and sales, while demonstrating strong growth trends for the future. This has led to Tamara taking on her first sweat equity project, FivePointFour, which saw 780% growth in the first 12 months. Pretty freaking unbelievable. Tamara has since started her second sweat equity project. Tamara's specialty is in online sales automation, and she's an international speaker on the topic. Tamara's focus is on subscription-based online products and services that use social media channels to build brands and sales off limited marketing budgets. Enjoy my conversation with Tamara. So hi Tamara, welcome to the First Step podcast.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So let's start with the basics. For those who don't know who you are, how do you introduce yourself?
Oh, Magpie. Serial entrepreneur. I love small business, and I'm more the creative side than the other side. So very much about problem solving, vision, culture, marketing, sales, all that sort of stuff. So I love building businesses. I love building teams, and I can't do one at a time.
No, we've just been discovering that.
Yeah, hence the magpie. Pick up shiny objects, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So I'd love to know, talk us through where you grew up and your adventures before you started your own marketing agency.
So country girl, born in Weipa, raised in a mining town in Moranbah. Always been creative, so very sporty town. I did more of the singing, songwriting when I was younger. So loved fundraising. That's what I did a lot of when I was at school. So I realised very quickly that I could come up with ideas and make money for charity for that, which eventually applied to business. Wanted to go to uni. My parents were quite disgusted. Well, my dad was when I said I was going to study art. I think he said art is a hobby, not a business. So I was glad I proved him wrong. So went off and studied visual arts. I'm actually a fine artist by trade, so I'm a medical illustrator by trade.
Wow.
Yeah, which is random.
What skills do you not have? Like, honestly.
I told you, it's all one side of the brain, that's it. So did that, and then I did an extra subject on top of that, which was marketing for more of the job angle. And then went and worked for an agency at the Gold Coast. Figured out fairly quickly it wasn't my scene, the whole ad agency, egos, pool tables, but I loved the work. So I went out on my own and started my own agency at 19. So
Wow, I did not know this.
I graduated high school when I was 16. So I'd done 3 years of uni by the time I was 18. And then, started the business. I've had it for 20 years, that marketing agency, which is been fun. Songwriter at the same time, so did that at the same time as building the agency, and read Rich Dad Poor Dad and started. I think I built my first block of units when I was 22.
Where was that?
In Hamilton.
In Hamilton, in Brisbane. Okay,
so Rich Dad Poor Dad just talks about where to pick it. You know, it's kind of funny. But
I could not think of a better place.
yeah, it's lovely there.
Yeah, it's
and I made
beautiful.
sure that on my 30th birthday, I had a really nice bottle of port on the deck of the penthouse and said to my dad, and we sat up there for a little while, and he doesn't say much being a mining town man, and I said, yeah, there's no money in art, is there, Dad? And he said, oh, you've been waiting a long time to say that. Yes, I have.
So out of curiosity, are your parents entrepreneurs, or where
No.
did this fire come from?
He's been in the same job since he was 17, did his apprenticeship.
Wow.
Yeah. So every time I start something or do something new, they're like, what are you doing? They don't get it. They're proud of me, but yeah, it's definitely not in the family at all. Teachers and mining people. So all my cousins, I think I have over 30 of them, all still a lot of them in mining and country. But yeah, I love business. So I just do what I do, and they're really
amazing.
proud of me. But I don't think Dad's ever leaving his job.
Never coming to work for you.
No, but my mum's a creative, so she loves anything creative. So she really encouraged us girls to follow that dream. She's very motivational and said you can do anything, you can be anyone, and I kind of believed her.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how did that go from being a business owner to an investor?
So
What was that
it took
journey
me a
like?
while. So what I think I hadn't done at an early stage was, even though I built a successful business, I mean, we're in the top 2% of agencies in Australia, it was highly profitable, but it depended on me. It was a goodwill business. So you don't know what you don't know. I retired from music when I met my husband and had kids. So I was looking to do something else, and I joined Entrepreneurs Organisation, which was about 5 years ago. And just hanging around those sorts of people and having conversations around asset-based businesses and scaling up and exit strategies and all that sort of stuff, I realised fairly quickly that whilst I had a great business, it was a goodwill business. Probably bigger than a lifestyle business, but it still was goodwill. It very much depended on me to keep the creative going, to do the high level strategy, all that sort of stuff. So I wanted to explore other options, and I was with my forum, and they introduced me to the concept of sweat equity, because I was saying they said to me, look, you make everybody else money, you help build their brands and sell their business, and perhaps you should do that for yourself. But I couldn't think of a product or an idea. And then it dawned on me, well, 4 out of 5 businesses are failing. Why don't I go work with one of those to help them win? Because marketing might help them, and the skills that I had developed over 15 years in business could help them. And that's the beauty of being in marketing. You get access to so many businesses and get to see not just the sales and marketing, it's all entwined. Their operations, you get to deal with the founders and their vision and all that sort of stuff. So as far as an MBA, 15 years of working with other people's businesses was a great experience. So being able to apply that in a sweat equity environment was sort of an interesting concept to me. And then I started exploring that, and I have a very good universe. It tends to send me things fairly quickly. So I think about 2 weeks later, I met Ben from FivePointFour.
Wow. So with that, we're just going to cover the basics. First of all, what is sweat equity?
So I've got the definition right in front of me. Sweat equity
read it
is
out.
ownership, interest, or an increase in value that is created from mental and physical effort rather than finance in return for shares in the business. So what that means is, rather than putting cash into a business, you're taking equity using your time and your expertise. And we all know the 10,000 hour rule. A lot of small businesses haven't got to the 10,000 hours across the 5 pillars of what is needed in a business.
Yes.
So 10,000 hours in sales, marketing, operations, strategy, finance, all that sort of stuff. So you basically take equity in exchange for your services to the value of what percentage you're taking. So instead of cash, using time.
Yep.
And there's a really good book that kind of models that. It's called Slicing the Pie. So there's a few models out there, but for me, I came up with my own model, which I'm sure we'll chat about.
Yeah, I was going to say, what is your sweat approach?
So there's a bit of a checklist that I have for picking a company.
Yes, okay.
So the first one is the checklist is I have to be able to add significant value. So my core skill sets, does that business need that? And if I was to apply that, would that be important for growth?
Okay.
So me applying my skills to a business that's, a wholesale, for instance, might not be relevant because my skills are social media. So looking for a business that marketing, sales, culture, social, low or no cost marketing, all those sorts of things would really help drive their business. So that's the first one, is can I add significant value? Number two is below the line marketing relevant, because we're not dealing with cash, so we don't have millions of dollars to spend at marketing. So are social channels something that we can utilize to grow the business? Number three is timing. So you've seen it a lot where people start a business and 5 years later the industry takes off, or 10 years later they might have been before their time or even after their time. So getting the time that you launch is really critical. So timing to take to market. And MVP, have you heard of that before?
Yep, minimal viable product.
That's the one.
I learned that from you the other day. I didn't know what that meant.
I'm
so
glad
I
you
was
admit it.
listening.
Very good. Yay. We were drinking wine, but anyway. So MVP is really critical. Ideas are great. Everyone's got business ideas, but I guess I can afford to be a bit fussier in the fact that I like to see that it's been taken to the market and that it's been tried and people are interested in buying it.
Yes.
I have done other ones that aren't. I get to make that decision. If the timing, everyone, there's 7 things here. If 4 out of them are relevant and the other 2 aren't. But for me, MVP is quite critical.
Yep.
The 5th one is the business partner. Can I work with that person? Effectively, you're getting married and you're going on a journey together. So it's really important that your values are fairly aligned, that your visions are fairly aligned for the business. And they've got the hunger. I mean, the big thing is you've got to stay hungry and a little foolish, right?
Yep.
Number 6 is my network. So one of my favourite sayings is your net worth is your network. And I'm fairly well connected through EO, which I'm very grateful for, and through all the business relationships that I've had over the last 20 years. So are there people within that network that can help me, either as a mentor to the business, as someone who I can collaborate with, who might have connections that could leverage that business, because we all know that networks are really crucial, which is another reason why you don't burn bridges. It's a good thing to be a country girl. You learn that growing up in a country town, so apply that in life in general. And then the 7th one are the values of the business aligned to my personal values. Now that's my thing.
Yes.
I could never sell McDonald's. Because I believe in health and wellness, and that's a personal thing.
Yes.
So does the business really, is it something that I'm passionate about? Is it something I believe in? Because you have to be transparent.
Absolutely.
You'll get caught out eventually. So I live and breathe the businesses that I'm involved in. I use the products. I love them. So that's really important as well. We've got to make a difference. So I've tended to fall into the wellness category because that's a passion of mine.
That makes sense. So for those who may be looking to be a sweat equity investor, or they're looking to get a sweat equity investor, what are some of the pitfalls that you've encountered and that someone could learn from to not do?
I think the main thing is to have your structures ready. I'm really into processes, so I made sure I put in as many as I could from the start, but there's still things that come up. So getting everything in writing, making sure that it's structured, treat it as if you are acquiring it with cash. It needs to be that critical, because equity is a last resort. You give away equity as a last resort. You've got the 5 Fs, your fools. Well, what are the 4 Fs? Fools, friends, family.
Oh, yeah, we've heard that one.
You know,
I don't know what the
3
last
Fs
one is.
maybe it is. Fools, friends, family, something else.
Finance, because I think it's credit cards, loans.
Yes,
I don't know.
could be that.
Could be that.
So equity is a last resort to give away. So you only do it if it's really crucial. And I've come across a lot of people who've given away equity and got a business partner because they might be a little bit bigger or a little bit further down the track. You've got to think of where do you want this business to be, and who you give equity to. You can only give it away once, really, or dilute even further. Make sure that person is going to take you to where you need to be. So for one of my businesses, I got it to a certain point, and at that point I went, actually, I don't know the game post 20 mil in food. How do I get it to 100 mil? It's time to go give equity to someone who's done that before. Track record is crucial. They have to have a track record. So that's kind of my big thing is make sure if you're giving away equity, it's for the long term. They can get you to where you want to be.
Yep.
And the second one is, as a last resort, but the second one is make sure that you don't dilute further down the track. It's a partner to a certain point, and they're willing to give up their equity for the sake of the business.
Yep.
Greedy equity versus, what's best for the business is really important.
And what sort of time frames do you put on this? Like with 5.4, and we'll talk about that in a minute about what 5.4 is. But is it for 10 years? Is it 5 years? Is it all dependent on the person? How do you?
So if you're running it like a fund, like an investor would, like a private equity, because that's what I'm suggesting you do. You make it look and feel. You do your due diligence like you would if you were acquiring it with cash. If you go through all those processes, then you've got a 7 to 10 year life, right, for exit.
Wow. Yep.
And the reason you do that is you can still have the option to hold a business, but the decisions that you make when you set up a business, knowing that you want to have the option to sell it, is completely different to if you want it as a lifestyle business or you're going to hold on to it forever. You're just a little bit more due diligent, and you get all your operations in place. You set it up differently because you have to hand that over one day.
Yes. It's
the whole getting hit by a bus. The best business people in the world are the ones that can create businesses that don't depend on them.
Yep, absolutely.
So that's pretty crucial. So we say 7 to 10 years, and if it's sooner, great. So that's sort of the lifespan before exit. As far as the sweat equity piece, I feel that within 6 months you have a fair idea whether this partnership's going to work and whether the things that I'm bringing to the table are valuable and getting traction.
Yes.
So I tend to put a 6-month lever in and a 12-month lever in. I'm out by 12 months if I don't see that it's working, and if I don't meet my KPIs, I give them their equity back.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. I was wondering how that worked. So with 5.4, can you talk us through the business? And I know you said within 2 weeks you met Ben. How did that happen? And what was it about that business that you felt like this is going to be my first shot into sweat equity, and I love it and I believe in it, and going for it?
Look, I'd never done it before, so being honest, saying I've never done this before, but I've heard of this concept. Do you want to explore that? Honesty is always the best way.
Yes.
So what happened was when he came and saw me, he knew that he needed marketing.
Okay.
He didn't have the capital. He had created an MVP. His timing in the market was quite good. I knew nothing about food, but that's not what the conversation was about. It was about how do we scale this?
Yep.
And he's so passionate. He wants to change the way people eat and exercise. He wants Australians to be healthier. So he ticked a lot of boxes as far as that sort of thing. But then you need to get down to a conversation of what is the business valued at, go through that due diligence process, have a strategy day, try and figure out what is that vision and can we get there. And so that's when he came. The reason he came to me in the first place was because I have a policy in my marketing agency that if people can't afford my services, I still gave them an hour of my time.
Wow, great.
And There's two reasons for that. One is that most of my business came via referrals, so I wasn't exactly out there beating on doors. So I felt like that was a good way to give back as a thank you.
Yes.
And not only that, I wanted to see businesses succeed, and if they did, buy a few things, the takeaways, and point them in a few directions, hook them up with some other people that they can work with. I'd usually send them on business courses to a friend of mine who owns a college, and just getting them set up with more chances to succeed. If that hour is impactful, then they're going to come back when they have got a budget anyway. If not, you've made an impact, right? That's the main thing. So because I had that, someone had referred him to me. Right. He came in knowing he couldn't afford my services and my agency, but I was giving him that hour. So if I hadn't known about sweat equity 10 years ago, I'd been doing that for over 10 years, like the businesses that I've seen that I could have made an impact on. But to me, the mental block was they can't afford me.
Yes.
As opposed, because I didn't know what sweat equity was. Imagine if I had started that 10 years younger.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. So he was referred to you, and then did you go, I've got an interesting idea for you? Is it more that you went to him and said...
No, well, it's
through
funny.
that conversation.
Well, it's funny because I went, oh God, how do I bring up this equity conversation? I'm like, this sounds awful. Can I have your baby, please? We've only just met.
That's what I'm really curious about. Like, how did you start it?
Well, I'll confess, I didn't. He's the one who come back to me and said, would you be interested? And I was like, oh, thank God you raised it. And then I said, have you heard of the concept of sweat equity? And I took him through that model. And what's great about EO is you get access to 12,000 members. You can't solicit, you can't work with any of them, you can't try and pitch to them, but what you do get is experience share.
Yes.
So straight away I went, okay, I think I've got a sweat equity project. I love the business. He's made it an MVP. I can really work with this. It's social media. The timing's perfect. And my forum went, right, go talk to other people who've done sweat equity before and see how they do it.
Yep.
So I'm really about mentors, access to knowledge so that I don't have to experience share, so I don't have to learn the hard way, which is through my pocket.
Yep.
So I went and spoke to a few people in EO that had done sweat equity, heard their models, and then derived what I thought was the model that suited my values, presented that to Ben, and it was, let's do this. So
wow.
It's pretty cool.
That's amazing. So you said that when you first started, you obviously have KPIs.
Yes.
Is it in conjunction with the founder? Like, is it in conjunction with...
Oh, definitely. Yep. Yeah, you got to have buy-in. I've always had a business coach. That's one of my big rules. So I got a business coach in. I get a business coach in at every sweat equity stage, and they work on what is the business worth, where do we want to take it, and we spend a day planning it out. So we have a full strategy of where we want to be, and what the market looks like, all that sort of stuff. So we put together that business plan and that strategy before I take equity. We assess what we think it's worth, and then we put in KPIs. So a clear strategy will have defined targets, and at what point when I meet a certain target is that equal to the value of the equity that I'm taking. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep.
And if it's going to take 3 years, then you don't want to be in business with someone for 3 years wondering if the equity is going to be realised. So I feel like it needs to be something where the value is realised within 6 to 12 months. Yeah.
How does that work though when you're having these robust conversations with the founder, right? I'm sure that when it's your own business, as you know, it's your baby, you love it. How do you have that conversation if you're on different sides of the page, or if you're like, we need to do this and you're going to get the return on this, and they're fighting that?
Well, that's a clear sign that, they don't meet number 5, which is pick the right business partner.
Okay.
Someone knows their baby. They know what it needs. So if they're pushing back on fundamentals, which is basically them not trying to let go of the reins or controlling it, or not seeing where the market's headed, then that's not the right business partner. Whereas everything that Benny and I spoke about when we first met was, this is what I think we should be getting into females. I think there's a market. We need to target millennials. Social media is the way to go. Let's create a community. Let's never do cheese, bread, let's be disciplined in what we do and specialised, the whole don't go broad, go deep.
Yes.
And he agreed with all of that. So that's what's good about a strategy day. You can say, look, this is what I think from an outsider's point of view. This is where I reckon we'll win the game. What are your thoughts? And if they're open to it, or if they're hungry for it and they get that and they're going, that's exactly what I'm thinking. If there's lots of yeses and lots of agreeants, then
you're on the right.
Yeah, exactly.
You're on the right page. Same page.
Exactly. No different to dating, right?
Absolutely agree with you there. No, that's great. So, in terms of, and this is an amazing achievement. In fact, I've read it like 50 times and I'm still amazed. You helped FivePointFour reach, how much is it? 780% growth in the first 12 months, which is unbelievable number. But what I want to know is, what were some of the practical things that you did yourself to achieve that growth? What areas did you target straight away? What are some things that other businesses could use or take away from your learnings?
So the first thing that I did was look at what the distractions were in the business and shut them down. We decided that the first 12 months, we weren't going to call ourselves a food manufacturing business. So the number one thing that I do when I get into any business is I go, how can I do things differently? Whatever everyone else is doing, we are going to do the complete opposite. So that's what I do. I start with a list and I go, what are all the competitors doing? What is Light and Easy doing? What are they all doing? And I went, well, Light and Easy's showing extreme weight loss, and therefore people look at them and go, oh, you're on a diet. So we're never going to do that. We're going to be about wellness, right?
Yes.
We have lots of people who lose lots of weight on our meal plans, but we don't make it about that. We make it about the fact that, you're investing in yourself, and this is all about toning, defining, better well-being, feeling better. So we didn't do the extremes. Everyone else is a food manufacturer, so I shut down our kitchen.
Right.
So I'm like, well, I could spend 90% of my time trying to figure out how to be a food manufacturer, which will take me 10 years.
Yes.
Or I could just go, and they turn over 5% profit. Like at the end of the day, it's high volume. It's manufacturing, right?
Yep.
We all know the state of manufacturing. Food's doing quite well at the moment, but in general, I don't know anything about that. So stick to what you do best. So I shut down the kitchen. There was no scale in that, which is the third thing, is how do you get scale quickly? And I went and contracted out to people, which is really interesting because I got a mentor. I got Tom Potter, who built and sold Eagle Boys.
Oh, wow.
So that was my, so scale.
Wow.
Stick to what you do best, which is sales and marketing, not food manufacturing. Get a mentor, which was Tom Potter. And basically what he said is you need to go find someone who can do 3 ton a week of food. They need to be audited by, they need to have an airline or someone like that in there so that it's safe because, they're audited regularly. And I got a mentor who basically said, this is how you need to structure the business for scale. These are all the things that we did wrong that you could outsource to start with. And then the fourth thing is we then decided to say we're not food manufacturing, we're a wellness company. That's what we specialise in. And that's a lot different to how everyone else is doing it. They've all got machinery, assets, all that sort of stuff. So we decided not to focus on that, and instead 100% of our time was spent on building the community on social, and 60% of our business comes via social media, and the rest of it all comes via word of mouth.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's massive, and it costs you near nothing. So we spent that first year doing that, focusing on building a community, having the right conversations, which was not about, how much weight do you need to lose, but instead, what are your health and fitness goals? Are you finding time to prep your food? Do you know that food is more important than exercise? Having those conversations with people, and that's why we got the scale. And making sure that as we scaled, we could service that growth as we went, and I wasn't sucked back down into the business having to go, I need to go buy more machinery and hire more staff.
Yes. Okay. That's fascinating. So talk us through then, that journey is amazing, but talk us through then hot dresses. So you're a recent investor in hot dresses?
Yep.
So how did that come about? Like, how many years into it with FivePointFour? What made you think you could do it again? How does that relationship work with FivePointFour? because your time's taken on both sides.
Yeah.
What made you believe in the brand? How did you hear about them? Sorry, 1,000 questions there.
That's all right. So Hot Tresses was actually a lady that worked for me in the agency. Her father is a formulator anyway. He owns Shower Power and stuff, and he was a client of mine. So there you go.
Okay.
So, and I'd worked with him on other projects that his children had worked on. So we met via the agency. She was in journalism. So she saw what I was doing and said, I've had this idea for this vegan hair care. I, at the same time, was doing a lot of reading around indie brands.
Mm-hmm.
I feel there's a rise of the indie at the moment. That's my prediction.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel the multinationals isn't what people are interested in. And we saw that with craft brewing, right?
Yes, absolutely.
You know, all the majors, no one wanted to go to a bar anymore and drink your 4X and your Fosters. And not that anyone drinks Fosters in Australia, but, I don't drink beer. You can tell I don't even know what the top ones are. But people weren't going and ordering from the multinationals anymore. It was a trend to order, to have beers that were craft, indie, in other words. So I was looking at that, and what happened was a lot of those got acquired by the majors. So if you turn over some of those indie brands, you'll actually see that they're made by the majors anyway.
Yep.
So I thought, that's interesting. When's that going to happen to beauty? And I saw that in beauty, people aren't really as interested anymore, especially with Instagram, which I love. They're not interested in the big names anymore, your Revlons and, your Maybellines and all these sorts of things. So I wanted to invest in something that was an indie brand. And I then looked at organic.
Mm-hmm.
And I really am into wellness, as you know. So when you go to the beautiful Flannery store, there's lots of stuff there I will buy. I will never touch anything in the beauty aisle. Not because it doesn't work. It's because it doesn't look good in my bathroom.
I was about to say, I agree with you. We're Flannery fans as well. And it's just such a turn off. I like aesthetically.
Well, you can buy Hot Tresses there now. So
can
go
you?
for it.
Okay,
yes,
well, there you go.
Yes.
Like, it has to be aesthetically pleasing.
Yes. So, it's still beauty, right? We still want it to be beautifully packaged and have a nice message and something that we have a brand alignment to, right? Hence why we pay so much for handbags.
That's it.
So I do consider myself a 5-star hippie. So I looked at that and I thought, what an opportunity and I also knew that a lot of the major department stores had a mandate for doing more natural stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And there was already a lot of big brands that had headway in that sort of space already. So timing, that was my prediction. If I could get some of these products that are sitting on that Flannery shelf that look ugly but work beautifully, and I could do my branding on it, like I know how to build premium brands and create a social environment where people love and follow that brand.
Yep.
That if I could do that to one of these products that works really well, wouldn't that be cool? And then get them into the majors. So that was the idea. It's just an idea, and it's it's just based on my buying habits and the rise of the indie that I saw and the mandate. So the timing, and that worked. We rebranded it. We come up with the name.
Was it having much commercial success?
Well, so she had
been launched?
See, that's one that hadn't actually been launched yet, but she'd done all the trials. She'd worked on it for 5 years, formulating it. So, because she was, stay-at-home mum, part-time.
Yep.
Working part-time. So she was doing this on the side. It was a beautiful product. When I tried it, I went, oh, this actually works. Because at the end of the day, yes, we want to cut down chemicals and, we want to do all of that. But if it doesn't work, we'll go back to the chemicals. We're females.
Absolutely.
We want it to work,
That's
right?
You're speaking my language.
So our target market isn't the hardcore vegan organic people.
Yes.
It is the ones that want to are more conscious about their health and want to buy, but they still want it to work the same, if not better.
Yep.
And this did that. It's such a beautiful product. So we just needed to brand it like it was something amazing that it is, but in a premium space, which is what we did.
Okay.
So it's really interesting because it's not even 2 years old. And we've had to rebrand it, launch it. So we've lost 6 months in that time. So if you look at 18 months, that's been in the marketplace. And it's already in Nordstrom, Derm Store, Hudson Bay, like the pin-ups of American stores, and I went after America. I was like,
I was going to say, did you target America first and Australia second?
No,
Or was it
Australia to me
concurrent?
was the story. But at the end of the
Yes.
day, having a beauty brand in Australia isn't a really big market.
That's correct, yeah.
Especially if you're looking at, David Jones, who wants exclusivity. Like, how's that helping a small business? So we went the Go Viters and the Flannery's route.
Yes.
As I said, everything that I do the opposite. So what does everyone do when they have a hair care? Who do they sell it through?
Hairdressers.
Exactly. So we have to do the opposite to that, which freaked my business partner out. But it was, we're going to be anti-hairdressers unless they're progressive.
I agree with that. Actually, that makes total sense now that you said that.
So they're not going to stock us.
No.
Because we're saying no heat styling, cut down on your heat styling, cut down on your chemicals. You think about the chemicals that are
Yeah,
used in
it's
hairdressers.
not in their best interest.
No, and some of them are great. Some of them are really progressive, and they get that, they want to cut the chemicals and all that sort of stuff, but they want a product that works. So we
Yes.
are stocked in hairdressers, but it wasn't my thing to have to put a sales force on the ground, another distraction, going around and knocking on hairdressers, hair salons. I wasn't interested in that strategy.
Yep.
It's not scalable. Well, it's slow.
Yeah, it's a slow burn, I imagine.
It is a slow burn. So to me, that wasn't. So I said, let's just go out and say we're anti these things. Let's stand for something. And that conversation cut through compared to other hair cares. That whole eco-luxe sort of style. And yeah, I still have a GHD, but I just don't need to use it as often. And it's saving people time. It's ticking a lot of boxes for women. So that story that we created, and this whole yogi lifestyle, really resonated. It's different, and it got the attention of them. And you can imagine how many people knock on their door to be stocked.
Absolutely.
And here we are, little Aussie indie vegan hair care.
So with that, breaking into America, had you ever done that before?
No, it was on my bucket list.
Right. So
And that was one of the strengths with 5.4. When I reviewed that one, I went, oh, this is perishable. Oh, this is hard to do global. So then I went, okay, next time it's going to be something that can go global. It has to have a high multiple on exit too. That's the
Yes.
other thing. So some industries have lower multiples than others. So all those sorts of things. I was like, okay, second time, what am I going to do this time? Something that can be global, that's not perishable. It's still liquid.
Yep.
Which means it's hard to export. But if you need to own the IP, which we do for the formula of that. So once we get to critical numbers, we can actually manufacture that in America. Well, that's the plan.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what was that journey like for you to get to America? Who did you talk to know who to speak to?
Your net worth is your
Network?
Yeah. I went to my network.
I was going to say, I'm sure it was through EO, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, every time. I tell you what, it's like my religion. I love it.
Because what's interesting about that journey is it seems like you got into America really quick, where other people can take 10 years to get in.
Yep. So Jelaine,
Yes.
who owns Cherry Blooms,
Yes.
a friend.
Yeah, and she's gone through that journey. Yep.
Yeah, and she's been doing it for over 5 years. So went to her and said, can you connect me with some people that you know? And everyone's helping everybody. It's not about putting out your hand all the time. And that whole rule of giving, I'd helped her with strategy a couple of years ago with her business, so in a marketing capacity. So I asked her, and she generously connected me with a few people. I'm studying in Boston because I had America on my radar.
Okay.
There's so many dead carcasses of Australian businesses in America. I just wanted to go and not be one of them. I might. Let's watch this space. But anyway, it's such a big market, right? It's huge.
It's huge.
It's huge. It just blows my mind. It's so cool. And it's such a cool place.
Yeah.
So I'm studying in Boston. I'm doing the Entrepreneurs Masters program, which is so cool. It's at MIT.
Fantastic.
And it's nicknamed the birthing of giants because it has birthed more giants than I think any program. They pick 60 people a year, basically. So I got into that, which was amazing. And there's 60 people from around the world that get together in Boston, and we all study part-time and work on our businesses and get access to the coolest mentors. So hanging around the Americans there's a few there, don't ask, don't get. I'm like, one of them happens to be in Nordstrom.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to have a product that works. And as long as people try it and they love it, then you can start a conversation. They go, oh, you're very young. And then I go, no, we're 20 years experience. At the end of the day, I know how to scale a business. If you can prove that you have a track record, which is really important, and then hard work, figuring it out, which I love. I love all that stuff. So yes, we're well and truly away, which is very exciting.
Fantastic. So what's the plan eventually for you and Hot Dresses?
So that's part of the venture capital stuff that I'm interested in. So one thing that I've learnt doing venture capital, sweat equity, is that I get sucked into the businesses and I can only really do one every 2 years, realistically.
Yep.
The issue with that is I'm under-resourced as far as growing these businesses. So I wanted to have a team around me, whether that was going to be an advisory, a board, or in my case, I chose venture capital, was to have people around me who could help do some of the work so that I could do more at once. So I'd love to be able to do 2 every 6 months or something like that, and sit in that marketing sort of space rather than, culture and operations. And I love all that stuff, but there's other people who could help me. So I went into business with 2 other serial entrepreneurs who have built and sold businesses, but they have different skill sets to me. One's finance and scaling, and the other one's culture and people. Right. So, and then I'm sales and marketing, and to me, they're all the critical parts. Absolutely. So we have raised 20 mil, and we will buy businesses, 8 businesses roughly, and we'll take equity, but using capital instead of sweat, and then grow those businesses and exit them. And we can do 8 at once because we've got a team now. Wow. So that was one thing I learned from sweat equity, is that, my timeline of when I'd like to exit me personally out of the business and what the reality was 2 different things. So I just needed like-minded people to help me on that journey. So with the beauty stuff, my plan is I don't know if you know how venture capital works, but roughly, if you have a business that's turning over 10 mil and does 2 mil profit, you get a certain multiple. So in food, it might be between 5 and 7, right? But if that business, and it's still high risk to private equity firms, like that's still a very small check size, right? And it's still seen as high risk. Okay. Which is hilarious, because to get to 10 mil, I think the percentage rate is 0.1 something % or something stupid. But a business that is 50 mil turnover and say 10 mil profit is a lot more attractive. So that'll attract a higher multiple. Right. Am I boring you with numbers?
No,
here?
I'm loving it.
Okay. So how venture capital works is you can take then 5 businesses that are all in the same industry, almost like a roll-up, and you get economies of scale through streamlining back-end things, where, sharing warehouses, say, sharing admin, all those sorts of things. And you can have 5 businesses that turn over 10 mil, and if you sold them as a group, that's going to attract a 12 or 13 times multiple as opposed to a 5 or 7, if that's a really rough guide. So for beauty, what I'm interested in is an Australian and New Zealand roll-up, or, brands that are beautiful, that are organic, cruelty-free, so I will never sell in China until they change their rules, that sell here well and have a nice story, but I can sell through my channels in America. So Hot Dresses was my vision to trial it, and now I'm going to acquire through sweat equity and either through the fund as well, acquire more of those businesses, help grow them. I'll have the existing channels, so I can introduce them to those same channels, get them all to say 5 or 10 mil turnover each, and then hopefully we'll craft brew it, sell it to one of the majors if they want it.
Wow. So if you're in a business in beauty, make sure that you send you an email. Do a pitch.
Organic.
Organic.
Wellness. I mean, something, it doesn't necessarily need to be beauty, but something in that sort of
wellness space.
Yeah, something in the wellness space that's a product. So I'm looking at a few at the moment, which is quite interesting.
And they're all from Brisbane?
No. One from New Zealand, one from Perth.
Right.
Yeah. So it's an interesting space, and they've been hard at it, right? They've got stockists here. They're doing well, but America and Nordstrom, it's a pretty good market. So
Yeah, that's next level.
yeah, but you know what? I wouldn't take equity unless I could actually get them into those stores, unless they could sell well. Like, that would be the model. If I can achieve this for you, then what is that worth as far as equity?
Yeah.
Which is a much nicer conversation than give me equity and then fingers and toes crossed that I do that I say what I'm going to do.
And that's what I was going to talk about, actually. I had a question around that because it's a question that seems to pop up everywhere. And I know it's a horrible question to ask, but how does someone who decides to get a sweat investor in or a VC in go, how much equity, like how do you have that? Is there ratios that you look at? Is there percentages? Is it just pie in the sky?
No.
How do you work it out?
So if you understand how M&A, so merger and acquisitions, value a business, it's the same model. So you value it as if it's cash.
Right, you said that. Okay.
Yeah. So if you know, and what an owner thinks it's worth versus what it's actually worth on paper, and I just tend to go, okay, let's just meet in the middle.
Right.
But I probably shouldn't have said that because now people are going to pick high value prices, but that's okay.
We can delete that bit.
That's it's fine. It's all about transparency. So, you know, you have to be honest with yourself. You have to be realistic. So if you go through the process as if you're going to sell that business at that point in time, what is it valued at? And you can actually get external people to do that for you. I think it's around $4,000. You can actually get a certified evaluator who can come in and audit your business and tell you what it's actually worth in the market right now. You wouldn't sell it right now because it's undervalued, obviously, and you're trying to grow it. But that will put a bit of a line in the sand as to this is what it's valued at. So that would be an option. I know how to value a business because I'm learning venture capital at the moment, so I can do that myself. And then it's all about what do they feel comfortable with. But for me, I could not sleep at night knowing that I'm taking someone's business because they're not getting traction. You know, or in Benny's case, it was, you know, it wouldn't have been open much longer, which seems wrong. So for me, I do a model where it's no win, no fee, and I don't know of anyone else in the world doing no win, no fee sweat equity.
Not even heard of. You're probably the only person.
Well, I like to do things different.
It's a very ethical model, and I think what's nice about it is, to be honest, we've always found in business, like, taking the moral high ground is very hard to do. I mean, people say it's easy, but it's not, and we've lost a lot of money because we've said we don't want to work with you or represent your brand because we don't believe in it. And so it's very easy to say, but it's very hard to do, and I think that's very admirable that you're like, there's a line.
There has to be, because you can't go into the relationship and then further on down the track they go, I knew this business was good and you got me at a time, you know, hence why they're called vulture capitalists sometimes, you know.
Absolutely.
That name come out of the fact that, you know, the founder feels resentment for the deal.
Yes.
I don't like, and my business partners, we want to do venture capital completely different. We want it to be a partnership. We're all on the bus, and we want our partners to say that was great. And if you speak to Benny will say, best decision I've ever made was giving away equity because look at the business. And he's still grateful to this day, and he's still learning and he's still passionate. So that's more of an important exit KPI for me than anything else.
Yeah.
And look,
that's fantastic.
If it's too hard, because scaling a business is hard, entrepreneurship has been made look far too sexy out of Silicon Valley. It's not the reality.
And far too easy.
Yeah, right. You know, better chance of being eaten by a shark, right? So it isn't sexy. You have to work hard. And look, if the founder decides halfway through, actually, I'm not you, this is far too stressful, it's going far too quick for me, and I want out, that's fine too. It's absolutely fine because they've created something beautiful. So there's lots of ways. It's just about having the right conversation and checking in all the time. How are you doing with this? Are we good? Do you still want to play this game?
Yeah.
You know, because we all we've all got our limits. And I've been doing it 20 years. Someone else might have only been doing it for 3. Yeah, so it's kind of important, which is why one of my favourite books is Crucial Conversations.
Crucial Conversations.
I've given you 2 books to read now, haven't I?
Yep, I love it.
And Rockefeller Habits is my rules. So Vern
Rockefeller.
Harnish, who's actually one of the lecturers at that course that I'm doing in Boston, he wrote Rockefeller Habits and Scaling Up, and they're my 2 Bibles.
2 Bibles, got it.
Love them.
That's amazing. We're passionate about Start With Why.
Oh, yes, I love that too.
That changed our business.
So
that
great.
book. It was amazing.
He does a session too, like a,
Yeah, he does a mentoring.
Workshop.
And coaching as well.
I've sat in on that. It's quite good.
I know. I feel like we've given so many of his books. I feel like saying, "Hey, you need to give me a percentage of how much I've earned you."
Yeah, commission.
Exactly.
Well, another good book, because I know Daniel Priestley, and all these businesses are based on what's called the oversubscribed model. So you don't get into the price war. You position yourself as being very different from the competitors. It's premium. And if you can do that oversubscribed is quite powerful. So there you go. There's 3 books. People are going to be busy.
That's awesome. Thank you. So what's the one question that no one has ever asked you that you bloody wish they would?
Probably the balance versus blend question. So
Okay. Talk us through
am I
that.
allowed to swear?
Yeah, I just did. So you can. I can't help myself. It's a terrible habit.
I think balance is bullshit.
Amen, sister. Totally
As a
don't agree with
female,
it.
It's ridiculous.
Yep.
So balance is pendulum. You take something from here and you put it over there, and then when that gets weighed down, you move it over there. I think if you're ethical and you blend everything, then it works. I don't ask for permission to take my family with me on trips. Everybody just knows if she's going on a trip more than 7 days, the family will probably be there. And that's how it is. If it's school holidays, most of my team are working flexible from home at the moment, or they take their holidays at that time, or they're probably running around the office. You need to blend everything together, because I'm obsessed with business that I wouldn't have any friends. So if my friends didn't work in the business as well, we'd never see each other, right? So everything's completely blended.
Love it.
I only want to do business with people that I enjoy hanging with and having fun with, because we're going to be spending an enormous amount of time together. So my thing is blended.
Yeah.
And that whole rule of keep your business separate from your personal life, I'm like, what do you got to hide here, people?
Yeah.
It's not sustainable. And as a mother, and I'm not compromising, I want the best of every world. So this is how it comes. And I don't apologize. I turn up to speaking conferences and my family are there, and I'll be in the pool as soon as I finish, my speaking thing. Like, that's just how it is. My husband comes on nearly every second trip. We call it date flight.
Love it.
It's great. And that's our date time. Like, other people have date nights at home. We do it on planes in business class. It's so much fun. He's coming to Vegas with me next week.
Oh,
Because he's
great.
like, babe, it's our wedding anniversary. We can go to Vegas for our wedding anniversary. You just blend the whole thing.
Does he help you on the trade shows?
No.
No. Damn it. You can't pull him in.
Oh, but it's so nice having someone to go, babe, it's time to get to the airport. It's nice to have someone else to kind of prompt you.
That's awesome. And I think, I hope you don't mind if we shared this story before, but when we overheard your conversation with Jenna, your fabulous PA, she's been delightful to deal with, I must say.
She is a gem.
And that you owe her your car.
I do. I made a deal last week and I've broken it already.
So what I love is, I'm sure our listeners will absolutely love this story. So please, if you don't mind, can you share it?
Because I'm a magpie, I said, because I was having a high capacity week, like I was just over booked, and I said to Jenna, look, you've got to schedule in time for me to pee, right, in my calendar. So she said, well, you keep finding all these businesses, and there's so many great businesses out there. I want to work with everyone, and you've only got to pick a Picasso. What I'm finding now is there's so many Picassos. Australians are really great at building businesses, small businesses. So I said, Jenna, I need to focus on this hair care beauty roll-up thing like that. That's a winner. Like, I've got to focus on this. Don't let me get into business with anybody else in any other sectors. I need to focus on this for the next 12 months. Anyway, this morning I've started a business in a completely different industry. And I went in and I went, this morning's meeting went, well, I'm doing this. And she went, that's your car. You owe me your car. Because that was the bet. I said, I'll give you my car. She goes, how do I hold you accountable? I'm like, I will give you my car, my Beamer, if I do it, okay? That'll stop me from doing it. And it didn't stop me. A week later, I've now got to...
She's a very lucky PA, I must say.
Oh, it's fun. We have a thing called 101 Dreams in here.
Okay.
So in EO, you write bucket lists and you go out and, you all help each other create their bucket list. So it was interesting. My bucket list was meet Richard Branson. And then someone on my forum said, I've got a ticket on his spaceship. Like I bought one of those 250 grand tickets to go to space. Oh. And he's like, yeah, I can do that for you. And so we went and spent a week with Richard Branson, me and my husband. It was the coolest week of my life.
Wow.
So we went and spent a week with him. So you put all the things that you want down and like big blue sky thinking, right? I wanted a business that was valued at more than 10 mil in under 2 years. And they're like, right, let me talk to you about sweat equity. Like these are the conversations that you have. You help each other get to a point. And there's lots of personal things there as well, about how often you might want to, mine is to do yoga so much and be, great at all the Bikram poses. Practice. So it's a mix.
Do yoga.
Yeah. Well, I can't do normal yoga because my brain doesn't turn off. So Bikram.
That's what I find. It's so boring. I just want to punch someone.
Yeah.
I need to.
No, I'm going to take you to a class. Your brain will be off. You'll be wondering why you're not dead. It's good fun. So, you have all these goals and we're all helping each other because we work so hard, we play hard. You lose more than you win when you're an entrepreneur. Let's put that in reality. So this is our way of making it work, like having experiences along the way. So it's about the journey, not the end game. And then I thought, what a hypocrite. I'm here doing all these amazing things and my team are back in the office running my business. So we entrenched 101 Dreams. So it's Keith Abraham, another book, but he's got this goal setting book and all my team have 101 Dreams. They've all filled them out. And part of Jenna's job is to every time a new staff member, team member, I hate the word staff, starts, I go through and I highlight all the ones that I can make possible because of my network. And then whenever and we've got to make 4 happen a year. And that's what we do. It's kind of fun.
That's amazing.
So I get my 4, they get their 4.
Everyone wins.
And so it's got to be part of the journey, right?
Absolutely. And I think what's great about it is you're expanding your mind. I think it's very hard when you're an employee. I think that transition from employee to business owner is quite challenging for most people. But this helps people who, there could be all these little entrepreneurs sitting in your office, but they're starting to dream big. They're seeing it. God knows what happens. That's what's exciting.
Totally. They all know, and I know what they'd like as far as their career journey.
Yes.
And we make that happen. So a marketing manager started with me. She used to sell wine. As a salesperson, wanted to be in marketing. I spent a year training her and I said, what's your vision? And it took a while, but she said, actually, I want my own marketing agency. And I'm like, cool. Let's just be honest about this. I get that that's your dream. I had one. Let me help you.
Yeah.
So I trained her up. She added enormous amounts of value to the business. And then a year and a half after that, since she started, she's gone out, started her own agency.
Wow.
And I'm not that interested in the agency side. We're not acquiring customers at the moment. So every time I get a referral, guess where it goes? So if that's the path, more business owners, the better. There's an abundance.
Absolutely. We agree.
You need to have the abundance mentality. So if people's vision is to go out and start their own business, fantastic. Let me help you with that. Or better yet, could you do that within this environment? And some people have moved from the marketing agency to the food company that are now in the hair business. It depends on where they're at. Some have children and go, hey, I'm really happy where I am right now. Can I have flexibility? Because this is the time that I'm at in my life. But isn't that great that if we can all have those honest conversations around what we want? I mean, Jenna, who is amazing, started because she was a single mum and she wanted 2 days a week.
Wow.
And she was working 2 days a week as assisting my PA. Now she's my EA, and I've said to her, well, do you want to own a house? Right, let's talk about that. Do you want to own your own business? And I've offered her equity in one of the businesses.
Wow.
Performance-based equity. So depends on what you want, but anything's possible, right? I love all that stuff. I love being a coach.
But it's also great that you put your money where your mouth is. Like a lot of people talk about they believe in their staff and having a good culture, but very rarely do people actually invest. Like I've never heard of this before. Like we've met how many thousands of business owners over the years? Probably thousands. I think this is the first time I've ever heard a business well, not that you're a business owner, but you know what I'm saying, actually invest in staff? Not just culturally and personal development, but physically, like I'm helping you get a house.
So, yeah, I mean, but I can. See, and that's the thing. I own so much property that it was simply me ringing my bank and saying, you give me 1% below the current interest rates. I need you to do that for a very good friend of mine.
You're a good friend to have.
It's
not to know.
But it's not hard. And you know what?
Yes.
There's so many EOers out there doing it for me. It's wrong of you to not even pay it forward. Plus, it's fun. But what I find interesting is that you say you meet a lot of business owners. How many of those have got to 10 mil in that amount of time? You cannot, I don't care how good you think you are, you cannot get past 1 million based on you and you only. It has to be your team. And once it gets past 10 mil, it's another whole game again.
Yeah.
So if you really want a business that's an asset-based business that doesn't depend on you, you need to believe and empower people. They run it. You aren't capable of doing it on your own. It's as simple as that.
No, that's good advice. So a couple of quick questions to close. What are the business leaders you look up to and why?
There's lots of billionaires that are doing the right thing. So naturally, I would say those that are giving. So you've got Mark Zuckerberg, obviously, who are giving it. But I'm starting to rethink that from my time when I was with Richard. One of the biggest regrets, I think, is that a lot of them didn't give sooner. So they have to be a big, right? They have to be a Richard to make a difference in the world. I don't believe in that. So I'm not going to name someone who's one of those people. Instead, they're the people in EO and YPO because they're not in the limelight. They don't want any acknowledgement. They're great listeners. They're great collaborators. They're great problem solvers. And the ones that are out there doing that and giving back with the buy one, give one model, I think they're the ones who will change the world. So how many billionaires does it take versus how many of us second, third, fourth tier, if we all collaborate, how many of us equal one of theirs in impact? And so as far as answering your question, yes, Richard's great. They're all great. They're all great role models. Vern Harnish is a huge fan of mine. I really adore him. He's amazing. His 2 books were my Bibles, and I keep referring to them, and all the staff read them as well. So there's people out there that are inspiring, and I think, again, it's timing. It doesn't matter where you are. There's someone who's inspiring you at different times depending on where your headspace is. So mine changes all the time. It's like saying, what's your favourite music? Yeah. It's constantly changing. But the thing that inspires me the most are the businesses who are out there, knowing that I might not be a Mark, but together we can make an impact, and making an impact just within their team, within their family, within their communities. I love seeing ethical business people. That really gets me quite excited. And I've got endless time for those sorts of people.
That's fantastic. Thank you. And when I heard you speak recently, you said that you're addicted to learning, addicted to reading, which we've just heard about 5 different books being thrown out there. What's a question you wish more people would ask themselves?
As far as learning?
Yeah, as far as learning, or business owners that you might meet that you wish, you should have thought of that, or...
Yeah, well, should have, could have.
Yep.
Not good language, I guess, but you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And interesting, at EMP they said 1 hour a week you should just pick up something and read about a whole different industry. Just a case study, which is, I thought, because, you're looking at other ways people are doing things, right, that might not apply to your industry. So that's probably a version of thinking differently, if that makes sense. So I do get concerned when I see business owners who aren't addicted to learning, because that tells me they're not innovative and they're not, they might not keep up. The thing with the business environment is it changes so quickly. With the rate of technology, you can't not be addicted to learning and be flexible and be open-minded, because it's going to get thrown at you quicker than you think. And you need to evolve your business more often than what you used to 10, 20 years ago, right?
Yep.
So to keep up, just to be able to keep up. That's generalising, but I feel like if you're not addicted to learning, maybe you could be happy where you are. Maybe you should exit. I'm not quite sure. But all the good business owners that I meet, they're addicted to learning. They read a lot. They understand that is more important. So the good old 80-20 rule. So they don't get entrenched in minor details. They really spend 80% of their time in high-level thinking and strategy. I failed at that to date. I'm very good at getting pulled into the detail. So that's something I'm working on. How do I spend 80% of my time in high-level strategy without the distractions?
Okay, that's fantastic. And if you could only spend 2 hours a week on your business, what would you do?
I'd sit down and figure out what's the one thing in my industry that everyone has accepted that isn't good about the industry and try and fix it. So in the food business, it's churn. It's a high churn business. Everyone just accepts that it's a high churn business with foods, selling meals, prepared meals. How do I fix that? So I quite often spend time just sitting there going, churn, churn, churn. How am I gonna fix that? Because if I could fix that, imagine if I could, for instance, one of my ideas was, imagine if I could lobby to the government and say, hey, wellness is really important and food is more important. It's a preventative as opposed to a reactive, as in you need to pay for it eventually anyway with medical. Why don't we invest in people eating healthy now so that you don't have that? And they were to subsidise people who ate well.
Wow.
But that would fix the churn, right? Because then people would buy
That'd be
it.
Revolutionary. Yeah.
You know, if people who are committed, if they knew every time they bought that, they got a rebate. It's like a sin tax in America. They've got a sin tax over there, which is quite interesting.
A sin tax?
A sin tax, yeah, which is takeaway is taxed and the money towards that goes towards subsidising healthy food.
Right, okay.
So it hasn't been rolled out everywhere, but it's a concept. I know they've trialled it. So to me, how do we create, that's just one idea that I have. So how can you sit down and figure out what's the one thing in your industry that if you could fix it, you'd be an industry leader?
Great. What a great thing to leave on. But I do have two first step questions.
That's okay.
You're blowing my mind. What are the 3 most important pieces of advice you'd give to someone who is starting a business for the first time?
Always be a little fish.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
So it's uncomfortable, but it's good to be the dumbest person in the room. You know, a lot of people are egotistic who are entrepreneurs. I get that. There's lots of D styles out there. I'm a DI. But you learn in environments where you're out of your depth. And so my husband says all the time, oh, I think you've become the goldfish. And I'm like, oh, got to go be a guppy because I know how uncomfortable that is. So I'm an EO. I've been in EO 5 years. I'm loving it. Everything's great. I'm comfortable. And the other day he said to me, you don't get nervous turning up to forum anymore. You're not freaked out by what they're going to ask you. And I'm like, no. It's like time to go into YPO. So YPO is the next level up.
Wow.
And the people in that have offices all over the world, thousands of employees, not hundreds. Yeah, hundreds of million turnover, not tens of millions. So I need to go be the guppy again, because hanging around those people, learning from them, those experience shares, that's great. So surround yourself. Don't be the smartest person in the room. Be a little fish all the time. So I'm constantly looking at how I can be a little fish, because you're drawing bigger circles all the time. And entrepreneurs grow in 30% as opposed to general, which is 10% of change is acceptable. Entrepreneurs like 30% of change is acceptable before we start freaking out. So that's my first one. There was a second one, which is your net worth is your network, which I think is really important. And I'm not saying go sack all your friends. There's another book, Never Eat Alone. So just... I haven't heard of any of these books, so this is great for me because I love reading. Great.
So I'm very excited.
Well, audio books are great too. Some are better for audio, like that one's good for audio, whereas another one that I love is called Predictable Revenue, but it's dry. Like it's how they built Salesforce.
Oh, yeah, okay.
But it's like, because everyone thinks marketing is a crystal ball. I'm like, no, it's completely calculated. It's a formula. and that book tells you what the formula is. So that's a really good one.
Okay.
So that's the second one. And being an entrepreneur isn't sexy. So be prepared to work smart and hard.
Love it. No, awesome. Thank you. And what does a startup need to do to get big investors to put in their money or be a sweat equity partner?
So I think the main thing is to be active. There is some amazing incubators and groups around that are doing amazing things. From Little Tokyo, just in Brisbane, you've got River City Labs. All these sorts of things. There's a precinct. That's my new office, going to be in there with all the venture capital and incubators.
Fantastic.
Go talk to them. Go spend time. What do you need to see in a business in order for you to invest? Ask people that question. If you don't know who your buyer is, or at least have a hit list, start with that. Go, okay, the ideal buyer for this business is X, and put that list down, and then go speak to them and say, what are you looking for? Start those conversations now. They might not invest for another 5 years or another couple of years, but you're on their radar, and you're going to be setting the business up for what they want to purchase or invest in. So start asking those questions and hanging around those people now.
Okay.
You've got to understand that anything under $1 million, you're looking at angel investors and sweat equity. There's lots of different models in there. In general,
Yes.
Tech is a different beast, but I won't touch that. I'm not interested in. Have you heard of the pigs and cows analogy?
No.
Okay.
Please share.
Sorry, vegans, if you're listening. So I invest in cows, not pigs. Pigs is tech, so it is. You've still got to house those animals, right? You've got to give it somewhere to live. You've got to feed it. You've got to do all that sort of stuff. And what you're hoping is that the pig doesn't get a disease, and that eventually it'll be a big fat pig, and you can sell it, and that's the end game, right? Whereas I'm interested in cows, which is, yes, you're putting all this money into that, but you're getting an ongoing income, which is milk. So then that way, if anything does go wrong with that business, you've still been able to fund the business as you go. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I have to think of a better analogy than pigs and cows.
I actually love it. It'll stick in my brain forever.
So I invest in cows mostly. Pigs don't really attract me too much. They're high risk, big returns. Don't get me wrong, big returns if they work, but a bit more country.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, commercial, conservative when it comes to that stuff. One day maybe. You never know. You might quote me on this, but it'll be a side project. So go ask people, what do you want to see? What are you investing in? What is your mandate?
Yes.
And then build that business for them and be on their radar. Like, it's logical, right?
Yep. Love it. Thank you. Thank you, Tamara, for being on the First Step podcast. We have
pleasure.
Loved having you. So many takeaways.
Oh, I
So
hope
many
it made
books to
sense.
read.
Yes. Homework.
Lots of homework. And for those that are listening, show notes will be available with all the books and all Tamara's contacts, social media sites, how you can stalk her. I'm sure she'll love me for that. But we'll talk soon.
Thank you for listening to the First Step podcast with Narissa Show. For more great stories on those who took the first step to change their world, subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review. See you next time.